Good afternoon and welcome to our conversation on cloud committed spend, the complex topic that many of us are still trying to navigate. Today we're joined with Nick Marcarelli, VP of Operations at Shuttersoft, to share some of his experience helping customers transact through many of the cloud marketplaces. So Nick, kick us off and tell us a little bit about your experience with the marketplaces.
Yeah, the marketplaces are, I think, a really unique opportunity for customers and vendors and suppliers to meet because it takes away some of the barriers that you traditionally have, like procurement. Agreements are already negotiated, so it's very easy to transact in a marketplace setting. It's a part of the agreement that you would have as a customer, and really allows you to move fast and nimbly. So, I helped a customer a number of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, around a private offer, and they were like, "Hey, can we do this on a private offer?" And I was like, "Sure." And then I had to go Google what is a private offer, and that's where my education started with leveraging these cloud marketplaces to deliver software and services to a customer that's already done the hard work of negotiating a significant agreement. Why should they have to negotiate another agreement for a smaller transaction? So I think it really provides a unique and compelling case in the marketplace.
Yeah, so I know prior to the interview here, you were talking about some of the changes that this has had inside organizations with these new teams now being responsible for bigger or different budgets. How are you seeing that impact customers?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Back in the day, we often had the traditional silos of operations and development, right? So if you're building any type of software, that's those are on the developers, and there's the people that keep the lights on and make sure that everything works. And it's so important. There's always been a lot of friction between those two because they're antagonistic in nature. We build things that the business needs, and then we throw it over to you and hope it works. And then, the operations folks resent that. And we've spent, 10, 15 years through literature and conferences trying to solve this problem with DevOps, right? Everybody remembers the DevOps phase. What's interesting is the idea around unifying actual collaboration between two groups has created like another group called DevOps, the DevOps people. And the DevOps people do all the tools and workflows in their own little practice that doesn't consider operations or development. So now we have three groups that are kind of at each other's throats. The cloud has done a similar thing. Typically the cloud in its infancy was really just around infrastructure, right? I need a server somewhere else. But we built cloud teams, or we maybe redefined traditional infrastructure data center teams to be cloud teams. So it became another specialization. So what I found with customers is they have all these silos and specializations within an organization, and people still aren't collaborating. So when you come across things like committed spend, that actually could be an amazing tool for all types of people in the IT organization to get some things done, but it requires collaboration and communication, just like anything else, which historically we're not very good at if we look at history.
So speaking of that, what's an example? Are you basically saying that, I used to have maybe I'm on a XYZ application team. I used to have this budget, and now the cloud team has this budget. Are they taking money from me? Like, help me understand an example there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great example. You think about your traditional infrastructure team. They're there to buy hardware and buy VMware licenses, and they're like a shared service. Well, that shared service is now operating under a smaller budget because we have the cloud for that. And again, the cloud used to just be hey, we've got servers, different place to put workloads. But now the cloud is so expansive in its service offering. There's what 200 unique services in AWS today, and similar matching services in the others like Azure and Google Cloud. So they're doing more than just infrastructure. They're providing platforms. They're providing tools. I mean, just native tools in Amazon is the competition for any other tools that you're using on premise. So there's a lot to consider there, and that budget is a little bit more nebulous with the cloud. There's a lot more freedom to it, which is, I think, the whole point. But that's not how traditional operations teams work. A Dell server costs X amount of money. The software costs X amount of dollars a year, or it's a perpetual license that goes on top of that. It's a more traditional kind of budgeting mechanism. So I think it can put teams at odds with each other because they're operating under completely different constructs day to day.
So if I was on the infrastructure team, what are the types of things that I can buy from the marketplace that maybe, I'm currently using, I'm aware that you can buy, services and compute, but I mean, what are some of the things that you can buy outside of what you would expect?
Traditional off-the-shelf software, that we all use today. So think about an operations person. Maybe they want to bring automation into their workflow, right? I do a lot of the same things over and over. Maybe I should use a tool or a platform or a framework to help me automate that. There's tons of tools out there to do that, but you can actually acquire that software from the marketplace using someone else's budget, which sounds awesome, right? So if I wanted to implement Ansible automation platform from Red Hat, I could also talk to the cloud team about, hey, maybe we can use this tool together and you can pay for it, which would be great. So I think, that's the thing I think most customers have not honed in on. Basically anything that's available as a software offering. A great place to look is just going to the AWS marketplace and seeing if there is an offering from an ISV. If there is, they can also do a private offer through a partner that could be a custom configuration of that software. So maybe you buy Ansible automation platform normally through your Red Hat partner and the normal distribution channel. That's great. Well, you can also do that with that partner on AWS or Azure or Google Cloud.
Got it. So we can buy software through the marketplace. We've also done some services transactions through the marketplace. So how does
it's actually just as simple as buying software. Might even be simpler, so anytime you're working with a business partner in the ecosystem, they have the ability to add services to a software acquisition. Or you can buy services a la carte too. You don't have to buy it with software, but that's a pretty slick way to acquire capability without having to go through the normal motion of a professional services contract. Now, I'm not advocating that you shouldn't have an MSA with your partners and things like that, but the actual transaction, if the budget is there, just being able to go, hey, I need a really smart individual for 4 weeks to help me get over the hump on this type of project, and Shadowsoft has that person. You can go buy 4 weeks of services on the marketplace with software, without software, and it's very easy to transact. And I think everybody ends up winning. Basically, if you can think about buying it, you probably can. And if you have a significant investment in committed spend, a multi-year agreement that may be millions and millions of dollars, it's a great way to burn down your requirements. Buying software, buying services, buying training. There's lots of things you could do there.
Yeah. So we can transact software services through the marketplace. It's a frictionless experience, what are the gotchas? What are some of the, I wish I had known this, before I started that you've learned through your conversation with customers as you've helped them navigate this?
Yeah, I think the main gotcha, which I'll refer back to the kind of our earlier conversation, is most people don't know how to get access to the cloud budget, right? It's being held by a specific team, and you have to go build some rapport over there, right? And probably build up some consensus within your organization to be able to do something like that. Not everyone's built like that, so I think that can be a challenge. But if you can do that, you'll probably help your organization significantly, because the greatest gotcha is paying for something that you won't utilize. And if we're just being honest, the public clouds are making a lot of money at the end of terms when an organization hasn't used all their committed spend. It affects your ability to negotiate in the future year around discounting, and often just leaves funds on the table depending on your hyperscaler partner. So that's the scariest thing there. So being able to work with another group, work with that cloud group, build some consensus. One other little thing is often there's a singular person who can approve the transaction. And it's the person who is in charge of the account. So pretty hard to buy something if you don't have the person that hits go on your side. So it requires a lot of that old school communication that we like to do over Slack and text message and not talking to people. I mean, it's an important tool and opportunity for lots of people and organizations, and you got to go build relationships to do that.
So you're telling me I got to go build relationships with one of these other teams, and I can't just stick within my own department?
That's correct. If you want to be a winner and buy things on the marketplace, you need other people to do it.
So in researching this topic for today, I heard that customers are signing up to, as an example, 3-year agreements with a cloud provider, and as part of that long-term agreement, they're getting discounts, right? I'm not too sure exactly the percentage. It ranges depending on who I've spoken to. But what I've heard is that if the customer doesn't reach that threshold, call it 10 million over 3 years, then they will actually lose that discount and have to pay back that money, right? So what that's leading to is, towards the end of those agreement terms, this sort of rush to go and buy software services to make sure that they hit that level of spend that they've agreed to. What are your thoughts on that? Have you had experiences with customers where that's the case, and what advice would you have for the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a constant worry, I think, with anyone that has a committed spend contract. And I think one of the best ways to alleviate some of that pressure is take some of the roadmap items that you have for your organization, maybe around modernization, things we want to do that maybe we don't have fully budgeted yet. So when you get to the end of the fiscal year or whatever your agreement is up, have a backlog of those items and go, okay, well, we can execute on this, because if we don't spend this money, it's going to hurt us, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's how this is set up, right? It's commitment for a discount level. So if you don't spend that commitment, then you're not going to get that discount level. That's kind of how it works. You don't get the BOGO for you don't get the BOGO ahead of the time. You got to do it at the transaction. So I think it's really important to have a list and be organized around things that you may want to execute upon when you get to the near term of your agreement. That requires some thoughtfulness. That involves leadership, right? So this really should be a strategy for an entire organization. But what we find is most people are kind of flying by the seat of their pants, and they're like, "Ooh, I need to spend $300,000. How do I do that? Who can I help, or how can I help myself?" And it creates a little bit of a frenzy at the end of it, especially at the end of a fiscal year where, we're buying everything we can. And, I think I think the cloud marketplace shouldn't be a place void of due diligence, but it should be a place filled with opportunity. And with some planning and some collaboration, I think you may be able to do that project that you wanted in 2024. That's not scheduled till 2026 because there's some money available. And that's a pretty unique ability to deliver capability to your business.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers today with respect to the marketplace, navigating, any lessons learned that if I was in, a situation right now, maybe some questions I could go and ask the cloud team? Any final thoughts here?
Yeah, I think, there's a theme here. Get to know your cloud team, right? Find out what they're doing day to day. Even outside of just the acquisition of, software and services, understanding the capabilities and getting on the same page. If you're a traditional ops person, the cloud's not going away. Is it taking over everything? Probably not. But, it's good to understand both sides. So that really can be an extension and, a good set of skills for you to have as an operations person. And then, yeah, I mean, you're not going to know these things like, what kind of committed spend do we have? How do we utilize our relationship with a hyperscaler? Unless you go ask and you get educated on that. Kind of a shortcut around that is finding out who your cloud rep is. I'm sure they'd love to tell you all about it. So if worse comes to worse, you can get educated around your own organization from them, because they'll be happy to take a meeting with you. But I think it's about figuring out how do we unify in ways that we work together. So cloud teams use certain tools. Could you use those tools? Could they use your tools? Could we save the company money by having a unified strategy around tools? That's a great place to start. And it's one of the biggest reasons that we get involved with customers today is that everybody's doing their own thing and they need to rationalize how they do that. And the cloud is a huge part of that. We have capabilities that are set aside just for the cloud teams, but like they're the same capabilities we may have on-prem. So there's some type of discussion, some type of collaboration that should be around how should we do this best that serves our organization. And we find that happens, all the time. We see this in monitoring tools. Shadowsoft is a pretty significant Dynatrace partner, a premier partner of theirs. And, we really love their technology and we love helping customers adopt. And, there's 10 monitoring tools in that ecosystem just laying around at customer sites, depending on which group you're in. That's a vicious waste of money. There may be cases where, this group may use this tool for this reason, but like, overall, when you're talking about the health of your applications and your infrastructure and, a unified way to consume that data and have some correlation between all that data, a singular platform probably makes sense. So, I think that's just an area, that's just an example. So we see the same thing with respect to the cloud and, operations teams on-prem. And, as partners, it's our job to kind of help them bridge those gaps. So we spend a lot of time doing that, and we like to do it because it ultimately helps the business. And that's what we're here. We're to help them modernize and, be able to go claim more revenue because they provide better services or goods.
Yeah. So it's about staying educated, getting educated on this process, whether that's internally so that you can navigate, with internal teams, externally so you can navigate it with the cloud providers and help you with the negotiation. And of course, as a partner of AWS, Azure, and Google, we're in a pretty good position to support customers on this journey as well.
Absolutely. And, they're all a little different, right? So there's That's why, working with, a partner space is useful because we've done all this hard work ahead of time, right? So we can help a customer through that journey of, leveraging whatever hyperscaler they're using, whatever ISV they're using, and, kind of be the glue to make sure that transaction goes as you would expect.
Great. Well, Nick, thanks for joining us today. For the viewers, thanks for joining. If you'd like to learn more about Shadowsoft and our services and how we might be able to help you on and in navigating your journey to the cloud marketplace, feel free to reach out to us at shadow-soft.com.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.